Hello again and welcome back to the shop. We're waiting on parts for the Goldwing, so picked up this little project, and this is one that I don't own. The owner does want to sell it in the future, so he wants to ride it a little bit first and then make a decision on it, but it's been sitting since 8 of 2016, and that's the same gas that's still in it. So it starts if you jump the battery, but it backfires and generally just runs like crap. So what I'm going to do is take the tank off, drain it out, and then start looking at the carburetors, clean them out, reset them to the starting settings from the factory, and adjust from there. And then it'll still need a little bit of syncing between the two carburetors to get it perfect. So that's the goal, just to get it running right. And this will be a good use of time while we're waiting on parts for the Goldwing. So let's get started on taking this tank off. Here, I got the seat out of the way, and this was not even bolted down, so I just kind of swung that out of the way. This is definitely had a couple people touching it because that bolt was not even tight. Looks like this connector is connected to the speedometer and the everything there. Yeah, there's a lot of old gas in there. And 2 fuel filters, huh? Huh. And the petcock leaks. That's just wonderful. I suppose I'll pinch off this line or just pull it off. Man, this stuff smells like varnish. Alright, the gas tank's out back, draining out. The only bolt that I see for this air cleaner is this one right here. So we'll just take this one out and see if that reveals anything. And then just the hose clamps down here. I think that thing's, yeah, after that, that'll be free. Now what I'm going to undo is that one right there. And there's 2 more hose clamps we need to get on this side. One of them is right there. So you have to reach down through the top of the frame. Even through this side here. Yeah, that's easier. So that's one hose clamp that I don't think you'd really be able to put on backwards because you wouldn't be able to tighten it. And then the other one is on this boot. And the fastener is towards the rear. Fastener on the hose clamp, sorry. So now, pulled out of that one. And like sin, as they say. There's actually two more hoses underneath that plenum. This one here, which looks to have a little bit of a filter inside of it, a screen of some sort. And then another one that looks like that one's a crankcase breather, but it's coming from that head there. The front one. Inside that left carburetor, it's just soaked with fuel. So we need to figure out what's going on there. Maybe stuck float. Some cables here that need to be disconnected. This chrome piece out of the way. Taking this bad boy off. So there's these two bolts here. And then there's one on the back side that you need an Allen wrench to reach. Oh boy, that was a pain in the neck, literally. And there's two connectors over here that lead to the carburetor. These also need to be disconnected. Now, we'll undo the two hose clamps on the boot, and then this whole carburetor assembly should twist out of there. And these boot clamps are 3mm Allen. So close. Oh, there we go. Just had to spill a little bit more gas everywhere. And you know what? I forgot I had gotten plugs for that kind of thing. A couple things I'm noticing. The first is the flathead screw where the panhead screw goes. So it's got the chamfer just, you know, into it there. And then, of course, the typical strip screws, strip screw heads. I'm going to take it outside and open up these drain holes and tip it around a little bit, try to get the rest of the gas out of there. Alright, so I got these carburetors apart, and that's not going to be in this video because this isn't meant to be a how to clean and rebuild VStar 1100 carburetors video. This is a video about this VStar 1100 specifically, and there's already quite a few good videos covering this topic for this motorcycle already. One that I found really helpful was from Mid-Nebraska Motorsports. If you're diving into cleaning these carburetors and want to know what to look out for and where to set things afterwards, that's a good place to start. So I got the bowls apart. I know the rear cylinder was running very lean, evidenced by the discoloration on the pipe from the rear cylinder, which usually means excessive heat and points to a lean condition. And the pilot mixture screw on the left carburetor was about a half turn in compared to the right. That one was at 1 1/4 turns out, and this one was at 1 3/4 out. The stock setting is 2, so that's where I set it back to after I cleaned both the pilot mixture screws. The left bowl gasket was leaking. It was just soaked all around there, and they're pretty hardened, so both of those are going to be replaced. I cleaned all the jets. There's 3 inside each bowl, and reinstalled, then went to check the CV diaphragms and needles, and this is kind of when things started going wrong. Well, aside from that, I'd found flathead screws where panhead screws go on the bowl, which usually isn't something you want to see. You can tell somebody had been inside these carburetors before because there's usually a cap covering the pilot mixture screw that you have to drill out, so I knew that these carbs had been messed with before, aside from the stripped and misplaced screws. So I started after I got everything cleaned up and put back together there, I started diving into the CV slide and the top side of these carburetors, and what I found was the diaphragms were pinched. You can see the pinch point there. They're not ripped. They'll still work as long as I can get them in without pinching them again. I wanted to remove the needle valves, or needles, to make sure that they were clean and in good shape, and they are. But when I pulled the left one out, which is the one I started with, the cylinder that was having an issue, I found that this O-ring, they had used the wrong size. I've already put a new one on there, but they used the wrong size and just mashed it in there. Like, those are pretty mangled. Both sides were like that, but the left side was pinched and mangled quite a bit worse. And when I pulled it out, 2 of the tabs broke off with it, so I had to order a new one of these. It's a $50 to $75 part depending on where you get it from, and that took about a week and a half to get here. So I replaced those O-rings with it's a number 36 O-ring, and it fits perfect. Don't be trying to shove, you know, the wrong thing in there that doesn't fit. So that'll all be going back together shortly. Bowl gaskets getting replaced, and we'll just try to put everything back together without pinching the diaphragms, and then we'll put them back on the bike and sync them. I've already carefully gone through all of the other passageways in the carburetor, made sure that they were all clear. There's a small jet hole in the top right there and right there, and then there's a couple on each side of the carburetor here and here. Also, obviously you want to make sure that you have your enricher port clear. I know that the enricher was working because that was the only thing previously that could get the bike to start. Another thing for you guys, off of Amazon I've found these small brushes and files. There's also welding tip files. These things have all sorts of different gauges, going down to real narrow all the way to a flat file. They're welding tip cleaners, but they work fantastically for cleaning out the small passageways in the carburetors. So everything's all clean. That's enough talking. I'm going to put these back together off camera, and I'll bring you back when we're ready to put these back on the bike. Alright, everything is back together. Slapped a couple zip ties on it. That's how it was when I found it. I think these are supposed to be inside here though. Like that. Seems right. Unless there's something else that goes there. Anyway, so looking good. Let's put it back on the bike. Okay. Fuel line's hooked up. Everything should be set. I've got my vacuum gauges set up over here on my second tripod, and we'll set them so they both read the same off of the front cylinder, and then we'll sync the two and then make sure it's tuned right and finish polishing everything up. But turn the fuel on, give the key a couple cycles around the fuel pump. Okay, sounds like it's got pressure now. Enricher is off. Let's see what happens. After I gave it a blip of the throttle, it didn't want to come back down.
Oh, okay.
was definitely too lean, so I've done three things actually. I hooked up my tachometer so we can figure out the right idle. I've got gravity feed fuel tank set up there, and I've gone a quarter turn out on both of the pilot mixture screws. So let's see if that takes care of the high idle. Alright, I'm guessing the front cylinder, I'm feeling is still too lean. When I checked it with my infrared thermometer last night, after running it for a minute, the front cylinder was hotter also. So I'm going to go another maybe eighth to a quarter turn out on that pilot mixture screw in the front and see if that takes care of things a little bit. Well, the carbs are off again. I just wasn't able to get it to run right. I got really close, but it wasn't quite right. So I started looking at things a little bit more, and I discovered two things. A, that intake is not the stock intake. It's a hypercharger from Kirikin, which requires larger jets, among other things. Especially when you combine that with the drag pipes that are on it. And about those drag pipes, this is the second thing. The rear cylinder's exhaust pipe had a baffle in it, while the front one did not, and that's why I kept having to go richer and richer and richer on the front, trying to get rid of that backfire, and it just wasn't working. So I've pulled the carbs again, and I found that the main jets were switched. These come with staggered jets from the factory, which means that the main jet and the front cylinder's carburetor is going to be larger than the main jet and the rear cylinder's carburetor. And those were swapped. So I went ahead and replaced those with a 125 in the front and a 122.5 in the rear. And I also added a 20 thousandths shim underneath each needle to raise them up a little bit, and that'll let more gas into the mix. So the black flecks in the bowls, those I'm going to purge through the lines a little bit more and see if there's anything weird still going on. Hopefully what comes out of the fuel pump at that point will be clean. But I'm just going to throw a couple zip ties on here, purge that through, throw the new seals in the petcock on the stock tank, and we'll run off of that. We are ready to run again. Hooked up to the sync gauges. Got my tachometer here. Got a tank full of fresh gas. I've purged through both the fuel lines. before reconnecting to the carbs, and everything looks clean. I think I'm ready to see what's gonna happen. Gotta turn the gas on for sure. So after testing the spark plug out of the hole, just grounded to the side of the block, I found that that spark plug wasn't working and the front one was barely sparking. So I've put brand new spark plugs in it and it seems to love it. The only problem is the float valves in the carburetors, one or both, are bad. I've tried cleaning them up twice now and they're still just letting it flood right in. So it runs really well if you turn the gas on for a second and then shut it off. Otherwise it'll just flood over. Black smoke starts coming out the back and it starts running like crap until it floods and dies. So I turn the gas on for just a minute and then start it. So I'm quite happy with the way it runs. What I'm not happy with is I have to take the carburetors out and apart again just to change out those float valves. Unfortunately, that's going to take a week to come in. So I'm going to call the customer over, see what, so he can see that it's running really good, just as long as it's getting the right amount of gas, and that those float valves are what needs to be replaced, and make sure that he's game. I'm sure he is, because that's what it needs in order to run. So we'll see what he says, but I think he's going to be happy with the way it's running either way. Okay, to bring you up to speed here, the customer has requested that I change the oil without changing the filter, because in order to change the oil filter on these, you have to take that front pipe off and you have to get a new gasket for that, and the studs on this are really rusty, it's really not something I want to mess with, and not something he wants to pay for. So that is getting done. The carbs are off again. New float valves have been installed in both, so we shouldn't have any problems once this is all back together, which is what I'm going to do now right after I change the oil. Carbs all back together. Turn the gas on. Well, it's running really good. I think at most I might go like 1/8 of a turnout on the pilot mixture screws. Just a little bit richer, I think. But I'm going to use my infrared thermometer and take the temperature, make sure they're both even. Alright, so my sink gauge is off of it. Put the side covers on, bolted the seat on and the tank on, and rode around the block a few times. Made a few small pilot mixture screw adjustments and kind of polished some things up. I think this one's ready to go. Looking pretty good. Running really. So I'm going to pop you in the stand real quick and we'll show you where we're at. Alright. There we go. So there you have it. That's where I'm going to call this one. The customer will be by tomorrow. See how he likes it. And hopefully he'll be ready to leave. It is going to need new tires before it gets on the road, because the front one is dated 19th week of 2002 and the back one 5th week of 2012. So those are definitely going to need replaced, but I think I'll leave that up to the customer. I think at most, you know, if he can talk me into it, I might remove the front wheel for him and let him get that one changed out. But I think it'd be in his best interest just to take it to a shop with a tire machine and have him do them both at the same time. That's just what I would do. So thank you for joining me. This one's been quite an adventure. Been here way longer than I originally expected it to be, but I'll be glad to finally be done with it, and we'll be back on the Goldwing soon. We are still waiting on parts to come out of paint for the triple trees, so we might start work on the front brake rebuild. So stay tuned for that. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoy the video, and we'll catch you next time.